it's been a quiet debate in most of our living rooms for a fairly long time. Now the Supreme Court has weighed in. The Supreme Court of India has directed BSNL to remove a mobile tower within the next 7 days after a 42-year-old man suffering from cancer had approached the court claiming that the tower emits a radiation due to which he was affected. The court has directed the state-owned BSNL to pull down the tower in the next week. Milan has more details.
While this is the first time that the Supreme Court had acted on an individual plea by ordering the removal of the cell phone tower installed in Gwalior, a man who is suffering from cancer because of exposure to radiation or electromagnetic waves of the cell phone tower for over 14 years. The case does set a new precedent for other telecom companies. Without the checks and balances that need to be done, no such cell phone tower should be installed, especially in residential areas. When it comes to linking the occurrence of cancer with exposure to radiation, the government has refuted such reports. This is Milan Sharma for Mirror Now.
मैं 24 साल से यहाँ रह रहा हूँ। सन 2012 में मेरे को पता चला कैंसर है। उसके बाद तब इलाज चालू हुआ। अब जाके इलाज बंद है। अभी भी हर महीने डॉक्टर के पास जाता हूँ, इलाज करवाता हूँ, चेकअप करते हैं, जांचें लिखते हैं, जांचें करवाता हूँ। चेकअप में बहुत पैसे लग गए। हाँ, हमारी जो मालकिन प्रकाशवती शर्मा थी, उनको भी कैंसर हुआ। वो पिछले साल गुजर गई। इसी टावर की वजह से हुआ। हम वो ज़्यादा यहीं ग्वालियर में रहते थे, इसी घर में, इसी वजह से हुआ। बहुत परेशानियाँ उठानी पड़ी, पैसे से, इलाज से। हमारे मालिक ने पैसे खर्चा किया, हमने खर्चा किया, हमारे परिवार ने खर्चा किया, हमारी बीवी के जेवर बिक गए। बहुत परेशानियाँ हुई, हर तरीके से तकलीफ हुई, शरीर से तकलीफ हुई, खाने में तकलीफ हुई।
The department has set norms, but there is no implementation of the norms. There is a lot of scope for manipulating the norms because they have to be complied by the telecom service provider by a mere self-certification. The term cells have to only monitor 10% of all the telecom towers that have been installed. So there's no way of ensuring whether the public health has been looked into or not.
Well, that's the simple question we are asking. We've been debating about it, like I said, in our living rooms for long enough about whether or not that cell phone tower that's next door on the building right above you is actually safe for you. There's been a lot of buzz about the fact that it may not be unsafe. Today, the Supreme Court weighed in and Supreme Court ordered BSNL to shut a mobile tower, the highest court in our country. The question we're asking today, are towers safe? If the Supreme Court wants that tower shut down for the benefit of this one man with cancer, what does that mean for the rest of us? And should there be stricter regulation of where these towers are set up and how close they are to us and our children? Weighing in on that topic this evening, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, spokesperson of the BJP, Aishwarya Bhati, senior advocate at the Supreme Court, Professor Girish Kumar, Electrical Engineering Department, IIT Bombay, who's done a lot of research on the subject, Anuj Jain, Telecom radiation expert, Dr. Sanjay Sharma, cancer specialist, Lilavati Hospital, Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, pulmonologist, Lilavati Hospital. Suruchi Mittal is the advocate who was arguing for the petitioner in this particular case. Prakash Munshi is a concerned citizen creating awareness of the health hazards of radiation. He will join us through the course of this conversation. I'm going to take opening arguments from everyone, but I really want to start with Professor Girish Kumar. Professor, are cell phone towers harmful to us and our children?
Yes, these cell phone towers are extremely harmful, especially the way these are being implemented in India. In India, we allow cellular tower people to transmit 20-watt power per antenna, and there are about tens of antennas on one rooftop, and that means they are transmitting about 200 watt of power. If you look in the USA, they actually allow in the urban area only 1 watt of power. In fact, their document OET 56 actually mentions that in urban area they only have the radiation which is 0.5 to 1 watt of power. So that means there the people are getting exposed to, even if I take 3 or 4 operator, 4 watt maximum. Whereas in India, people are exposed to about 200 watt of power.
Is this because the regulation is too loose?
Oh yes, absolutely. The regulation is extremely loose. In fact, India had adopted ECNIP guidelines till 2012. And in fact, the ICNIP guidelines itself say very clearly that these guidelines are only for short-term exposure. And their short-term exposure, it is written there, averaged over 6 minutes. In fact, those guidelines were met for the people who go near the cellular tower and do the testing, and they are exposed for shorter time. But in India, we adopted that norm for 24 hours a day. Now, what is good for 6 minutes cannot be good for 24 hours.
When you say, Professor, when you say it is extremely dangerous,
yes.
I'm quoting you here, what do you mean? What will happen if I'm exposed for 24 hours?
Okay, fine. I'll just tell you that. I'll just complete that. So, yes. India actually adopted ICNIP guideline with our lot of effort. India finally reduced the norm to 1/10 of the ICNIP line. Now, if ICNIP guideline is for 6 minutes, 1/10 of that will be only good for 1 hour. So right now, the norm which we have in India is only good for 1 hour per day exposure, but we have adopted it for 24 hours. So it is really bad. Now, what are the health hazards if people are exposed to that? It starts with a very, very simple thing. For example, people will start feeling headache, sleep disorder, lack of concentration, memory loss, irritation, and then it will become more difficult. So people will have infertility. In fact, the pregnant ladies which are living nearby, so what is happening? The child inside the lady, which is in the womb, is surrounded by the fluid. And that fluid goes through tremendous vibration. And that vibration creates pressure on that little baby. So if you see in the last several years, lot of babies are being born which are either deformed or they get killed inside the womb itself. And that is why there is a very large number of cases which are coming up where ladies are having miscarriages.
What about small children?
Yes. Now the children, in fact, their skulls are developing, their brain is developing, so they get affected much more than, let's say, an adult. And that is why, and then all this exposure leads to ultimately to different types of cancer. So depending upon which body part is getting more exposed to the radiation. Okay. And in fact, there are 3,800 papers which actually say there are health problems. I want to say that yes, there are also 25,000 papers which cellular operator like to quote, which say there are no health problem, but scientists around the world have found out that more than 70% of those papers are funded by industry. And part of the things, in fact, I have gone through thousands of those papers. So what they do, they expose, let's say, a rat for very short duration.
Let me just point this out. The American Cancer Society, for example, has said that there is absolutely no connection between cell phone tower radiation and and cancer. The Cellular Operators Association in India has said repeatedly, and after the Supreme Court order, has said, do not panic. These cell phone towers are completely safe. I'm quoting from this morning's newspaper. The DOT, which is the Department of Telecom in India, has said that India is currently, as far as norms are concerned, at 1/10 the global standards, which means it is the strictest norm in the world. It is safer than any other country.
Okay, let me put all the counterpoints here. So in USA, when the Cancer Society is saying that do not worry about the cellular tower, that is true for USA because they only allow 1 watt of power transmission.
Right. Let me just bring in the other voices as well. I'll come back to you, Professor.
Yes.
Anuj Jain?
Yes.
Do you agree it's safe, unsafe?
I think excess of anything is poison, right? So we're becoming so dependent on technology.
Towers particularly?
Yes, so towers, if you have one antenna and some norms are there for one antenna, now you have a cluster of antennas looking over you and you have no control over how these antennas have been placed. And while the placement of these antennas can change overnight just because someone is facing some network outage somewhere, you could be facing higher radiation levels where you're sleeping. Now, obviously, with much more data being pushed through the mobile network, people are getting used to a lifestyle where people are now switching away from Wi-Fi and getting more into telecom network-based data services. Now, that means much more power being thrown out or being pushed from the mobile towers.
So you're saying it's unsafe. I want to bring in Dr. Sanjay Sharma, who is the cancer specialist, the oncologist at Lilavati Hospital. Dr. Sharma, thank you for joining us. Do you believe that towers are unsafe?
To be honest, I don't know what are the norms in India, whether they are regulated properly or not. But if you go by whatever evidence that we have in India as well as abroad, basically what is these towers do? They emit radio frequency waves. Now these radio frequency waves, when they come down from tower, and even if you have a cement wall or a concrete wall or a wooden wall, it is different dissipation of those kinds of energy. And to be honest, I don't think there is anywhere mentioned that 4 towers or 5 towers producing this much amount of watts of energy producing any cell damage, because these energies or radio frequencies are not enough to produce DNA damage at the cellular level. So it might cause some other diseases, but at least at the moment there is no evidence anywhere in the world except some anecdotal evidence that these kind of towers are harmful. And you must understand, if there is anything a little bit harmful, it's a science that is progressing, where lifestyle is changing. In fact, I want to ask gentlemen who are sitting and saying towers, do they ever sit in front of television? How many people are sitting in front of televisions? Is the television towers, radio stations are not emitting more heats and more energies than the cell towers? Are they not cooking in microwave ovens? Once upon a time, microwave ovens were considered, it's carcinogenic. Now, whole world uses it.
Professor Girish Kumar, please answer.
In fact, your radio frequency aberrations emitting from televisions and other Wi-Fi that we are using is almost the same.
Yes,
So,
people have Wi-Fi routers inside their homes.
Yes, in fact, okay, I'll just mention. See, people who are sitting in front of the
so
TV.
what I'm trying to tell you that.
Right. Let him answer. Professor, go ahead.
Let me complete, sir. Let me intervene. What I
Okay, go ahead. Professor, go ahead.
Okay, see, when people are sitting in front of the TV, it is actually speaking, light energy which they are facing it. And that is just the LEDs. In fact, these days people don't use cathode ray tube because cathode ray tube were supposed to be harmful. In fact, the plasma TV also had more radiation compared to what we have LCD TV and LED TV. Now, coming to when people cook food in a microwave oven, so it is the food which is getting cooked.
Not everybody is in this country using it.
No, I'm coming to that.
That's not the point.
So see, the thing is, the food is getting cooked, and it is actually the water inside the food which is vibrating, and that vibration is producing heat. Now think about human body has 70% liquid, and then when that liquid is going through the vibration.
A cluster of cell phone towers is like sitting in a microwave?
No, it is not sitting in a microwave, because microwave power will be something like, let's say, 500 watt. And that is why a food gets cooked in about 5 minutes time. But instead of 500 watt, let's say if the power transmission is only 1 watt, for example, that means instead of 5 minutes, it will take 500 minutes. Now, if I have a power reduced by another 100 times, it will take about 50,000 hours. And those hours, if you see now, you divide 24 hours and multiply that with 365 days. That is where you start seeing the effect in not 1 year or 2 years. It takes about 5 to 10 years. And I want to bring to your notice that, see, there are lots of reports are there. Let me just quote a few. Like, for example, in Naila, Germany, what they did the study after 5 years of installation. After 5 years, they saw that the rate of increase was only 1.1. Normal is 1, so no problem. Right. But after 10 years, it was 3.2. So that means 3 times more there is a probability of that. Like for example, Austrian Medical Association has very clearly said that even 1 milliwatt per meter square is very far above normal.
Let me bring in the other voices right now. Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, pulmonologist at Lilavati. I want to point out here that Professor Girish Kumar did not say that the towers cause cancer. He said they cause memory loss, they will impact you in different ways, but he did not use the word cancer. Do you believe that the towers are unsafe, Dr. Mehta?
Yeah, thanks, Faye. It's a burning topic, and can I have a few moments? I've heard all the speakers, and I completely agree. At this moment, I think there's a lot of fear. We should not fall prey to fear-mongering. There is really no evidence at this moment that is scientifically proven to show that it causes cancer. Yes, as you mentioned, there are a lot of other health effects. I think we should be very clear. We have a separate issue in terms of ionizing radiation versus non-ionizing radiation. Now, cell phones are non-ionizing radiation and hence do not directly damage the DNA. In none of the studies have they shown to damage DNA or cause cancer. I want that we should not put too much fear in the audience that is listening to us. It's our duty to be scientific. Having said that, what is very important is I think we as a group need to bring the level of awareness to a higher level. My feeling is we should do a survey. We are talking out in the air. We do not know what is the actual radiation from Indian towers.
With all due respect, Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, to be fair, while we may be talking in the air, the reason why we're having this conversation is because the Supreme Court weighed in on this topic as yesterday. And I want to bring in Aishwarya Bhati and Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Aishwarya Bhati, if the Supreme Court has asked for a tower to be shut, and I'm sure you're familiar with the case, then how do we read that order? What do we understand from that order, Aishwarya?
Well, Faye, this is the first of its kind, and the Supreme Court has taken cognizance, and definitely the direction to shut the tower down in 7 days on the plea, being persuaded by the plea of this 42-year-old man who says that he's got cancer there. So Supreme Court has definitely felt persuaded by it and decided to pass that direction. Supreme Court directions are not directions that we get easily, let me tell you. Supreme Court is a very difficult court to get directions from, and they will not pass a direction just casually or lightly. They have well thought about it, considered it. But I also want to talk about something here. See, there are different experts even here on the panel. There's different experts, one on the, so strongly advocating the point that it causes so many issues and harmful diseases. The people on the other side are saying that there is no conclusive proof, there is no study, scientific study that conclusively shows that thing. See, the point is that this is a tussle that we have had. All developments, all developing countries, they have this tussle with environment. And there are three principles that are coined by the Supreme Court when dealing with environmental issues. One is sustainable development. All these concepts are self-explanatory. So just listening to them, you'll understand. Sustainable development. You can't have a mindless, reckless development that, you are only focused on development and it does not sustain itself. Second aspect is precautionary principle. So in issues of environment, precaution is a very important thing. And third is polluter pays. So please understand that environment is something that we take, it's like you're holding it in custody for the next generation. And you'll find it very surprising that when it comes to these, these emissions, these radiations, the current regime does not really cover the air pollution, the noise pollution. It does not really cover the radio frequency radiations. Of course, there is a regulation that has come out by the Central Pollution Control Board. The DOPT follows these sets of guidelines. Their own affidavit says that 10 crore rupees have been levied as penalties for radiations which were higher. But the point is, will we wait for conclusive scientific evidence to actually do something about it? I might remind you of one more thing. When initially there was this whole movement that started to link tobacco with cancer, there was so much of resistance. For all scientific and medical studies that came out to link tobacco with cancers, there were these sponsored studies by the tobacco industry to completely negate that. And there was a lot of resistance from the society, from the courts, but ultimately, tobacco and cancer fell like, it was dominoes effect. It fell all over the world. Still
so
now,
Aishwarya Bhati points out that it's not...
And they try to do this. So commercial interests are important.
Commercial influences are important. Aishwarya Bhati pointing out that a judgment or an order from the Supreme Court doesn't come by easy. Doctors, I beg your pardon, advocates have to work very hard. And Suruchi Mittal is the advocate in question. Suruchi Mittal joins us on the show as well. Suruchi, what happened in Supreme Court? You got the order that you wanted. Do you believe that government right now needs to read into this order and understand that the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of the matter?
Yes, I fully agree. The government has, the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of the matter. In fact, the cognizance was taken 1 year back when it issued notice on my petition and several other connected petitions, taking note that there are raising public concerns about people getting cancer living in proximity to cell tower radiation, and it was not an easy order to get, and it's still a battle is half win. We have to go a long way. The guidelines have to be put in place. The enforcement mechanism has to be checked, and we need long-term studies and more specifically India-specific studies to see, because we have different climatic conditions than the Western countries where most of these studies have been done. So we need Indian-specific studies to establish that what effect will EMR will have in India.
Absolutely. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, will the government right now, re-look at regulations, or given the fact that the Supreme Court has given this order, does that change anything within, within the offices of the government that frame regulations about cell phone towers?
Many issues have come up. I want to just clarify the government stand. One is that there is no conclusive evidence that the cell phone towers are creating hazard to the life and human life. The second important thing is the Supreme Court order, I think, is with regard to the complaint that there was an illegal tower in between near that house, and that has caused harm. And the third point important is many of the objections raised here are based on perception, more on perception. And important thing is they are talking of harmful effect of radiation. Nobody is denying that there is a harmful effect of radiation. That is with regard to every technology that we follow. There are some side effects, there are harmful effects. What the government has to do is to regulate the radiations, and the government has categorically said that we are regulating the emissions, where we are also imposing penalties on those cell towers, mobile towers, which are violating the radiation levels. When there is a restriction on radiation levels and there are no conclusive evidence that radiation below those levels are causing cancers, there may be a perception that they are maybe causing harmful effects, but the government has to act on a conclusive reports. We cannot act on a perception. Then everything is in technology, every advancement, every issue, everything has a side effects in itself.
Right.
Prakash Munshi, it has to be in a controlled environment, in a controlled way, which does not cross the limit of harmful effects. If the people are working in the mines, they have the negative effect. People are working on various pollution.
Exposure needs to be limited. Okay. I got your point. Let me just bring in Prakash Munshi. Prakash Munshi is a concerned citizen creating awareness of health hazards due to EMF radiation. Prakash Munshi, respond to what's being said right now.
Faye, give me some time. First of all, I would like to start by saying that Shri Narendra Modi ji has mentioned in a message, microwaves and radiation through mobile towers have proved to be killers for the bees and creatures. Are we not creatures? Number one. Point number two is that DOT reduced the radiation norms in December 2012 or September 2012 to 10% of ICNIRP norms. At that time, Mr. Chandrasekhar, the ex-secretary of DOT, mentioned on TV channel that why are you worried, Mr. Munshi? Already 95% of the antennae are below these reduced 10%. So that means that was a big eyewash. If it is the antennae were already below the 10%, where was the reduction there? Secondly, all these radiation norms are not going to affect our health hazards. What affects is the actual levels of radiation. Indian norms today are 10 times higher than Russia, Italy, Poland, and these are not banana republics. And this information has been provided by the DOT to the Parliamentary Standing Committee, where Juhi Chawla and myself were in the witness box in 2013-14. The Parliamentary Standing Committee has criticized the DOT and said
So then we
that
are
it was a
talking
very
of the levels of radiation.
Hello, please wait. I never interrupted you, my dear sir.
We are only talking of the levels of radiation then. That is being
Listen to
regulated
me
by the
first.
government.
No, let
If
him
you
finish.
are-
Gopal
you are
Krishna Agarwal,
saying
let
that
Mr.
the
Munshi
levels of
finish his
radiation
point.
Mr.
are
Agarwal,
harmful.
Stop interrupting me, please. I beg of you.
Go ahead, Mr. Munshi.
You see, the Indian norms are 10% higher than Russia, China, Italy. The norms are not the problem. The actual radiation levels, if you will see in France, is 20 milliwatts per square meter for 97% of their antennae. And we are talking about norms of 450 milliwatts up to 1000 milliwatts, which are 50 times higher than this. So our norms are not the most stringent in the world. And if our Honorable Prime Minister has said that mobile towers have proved killers, what more proof do you need, may I know? The other point is that there has been actual studies done by Dr. Henry Lai, which has proved DNA damage. Motorola had funded Professor Ross Adey, which showed tumors in rats. As soon as the study showed that it was going against the industry, they withdrew the funding to Motorola and Dr. Henry Lai.
Okay, let the others respond now. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, you want to respond to that?
Can
Go
I
ahead.
come in? Can I
yes,
come in?
go ahead, Gopal Krishna Agarwal.
One thing is, nobody is denying that radiation is harmful to the human life. That is, but the only question is a level of radiation. Everybody is agreeing here also that radiation levels have to be checked and monitored and have to analyze with the international standards. Definitely there can be a debate, but nobody can be debated what levels is to be set for the Indian standards and what has to be done. The government will definitely look into these issues. So the third important thing is that cell phones and cell towers are essential part of the technology in which we are working in the current environment. So nobody is here also is not saying that we should completely dismantle all the cell phone towers. Then the only alternative is not to go for the mobile phones, then leave it. So therefore we have to conclude that the cell phones are here to stay. Their levels have to be continuously monitored. Their radiation has to be checked, and implementation of that regulation, the government has to regularly monitor that. The government is committed to monitor. And the next thing is that if there is no conclusive evidence on that, they are
you've said that. Yes, you've said that. You've said
cancerous things.
Right. Let me bring in some viewers. Ravi Nair is on the phone line, and both the doctors, I know that you have a point to make, and I'll bring you in after this. Ravi Nair is on the phone line. Ravi, go ahead.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I have been attending at least 6 to 7 seminars in regards to this tower radiation. And as a citizen, I'm equally concerned about the way the 1.25 million people are concerned about. What has been happening is that we have been watching television. Even the television emits a lot of rays. Has anybody bothered to complain about it? In the 70s, we had seen a lot of transistors on the road when we have this 8-hour match which goes on right from morning to evening around at 4 o'clock. Nobody has come here. I mean, they have been keeping those transistors right on the ear where it really gets effective, and that these people talk about being cancerous and all those things, and nothing has happened. The question to be asked is, has the incidence of cancer increased after 1993, after the mobiles came up? Nowhere in the world they have either the WHO or this Tower Association, COI, or these associations have never ever come out with a paper saying that it is cancerous. Now I'll give you a very clear-cut thing.
Right. Okay. Oh, all right, Ravi. We got your point. Let me take this across. Let me take this across to Dr. Sanjay Sharma. Have the instances of cancer being reported? Let's take the city you function in, which is the city of Mumbai, increased after 1993 since the introduction of cell phones.
No, I don't think it is because of cell phones. It is about lifestyle change, and there are many things which cause cancers have increased. from diet to health, increased body mass indexes and other consumptions
Dr. Sharma, can we say conclusively that it is lifestyle change and not cell phone towers? Can we say, is there conclusive evidence to tell us that it's lifestyle change and not cell phone towers?
Definitely, we don't have any evidence. We don't have any evidence. There is one. And one more thing I just want to clarify here, that the lady who initially spoke, that tobacco, never ever any doctor fraternity had said that tobacco has no ills. Tobacco was cause of cancer from day one, number one carcinogen. It has remained number one, and we have never supported any cause. So that analogy is absolutely out of window. What I said is that definitely, and I agree with Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal and other gentlemen, is that we have to regulate our
towers. You need to see it then properly in the US, where the medical doctors were actually promoting various different cigarette brands.
Mr. Agarwal, can I just finish?
We just want to tell you a few other things. I think you please read. There are several hundreds of papers written in the medical journal.
You know what? This is important. This is important. Let me ask the question one more time. And this is Professor Girish Kumar of the Electrical Engineering Department of IIT IIT Bombay. Professor, here are the things that were said. That the conclusions you have arrived at are not scientific. There is no conclusive evidence that links cell phone towers with cancer. And my third question to you, Professor, is then, are you proposing that we go without phones, which is what Gopal Krishna Agarwal's question was. This is the world we live in. Is there any way that we can continue to have our cell phones and not be exposed to this? So my first question to you, is it unscientific? Is it just your personal view?
No, it is 100% scientific. I would tell you that there are 4,000 scientific papers. I have gone through thousands of those. We have done our own experiment on animals, and we have actually seen that these are absolutely conclusive. And one thing I want to say, when people say there is no conclusive evidence, that actually means, that does not mean there is no evidence. So first of all, let's agree. And one of the person did say that, yes, we agree the radiation has a problem. So yes, radiation has a problem. It has been conclusively proven by thousands of scientists. Of course, yes, I did mention that there are several thousand of papers which say there is no problem, but that has also been proven that these are funded by industry. Coming to your question, no, not even once I have said that people should not use cell phone. It is a fantastic technology. There is a better way of implementation.
How is this?
And I want to just mention that only. As I mentioned earlier, in USA, they allow only 1 watt of transmitted power in the urban area, and yet communication takes place. And what they have done, they have installed low power transmitter at shorter distance. The same thing we need to do. Instead of transmitting 20 watt of power, if we allow them only to transmit 1 watt of power, what it will require, I'll just take 1 minute, that would actually require that we need to install more low power transmitter, okay? And also I want to mention in USA regarding cell phone also. In USA, this statement was made by Qualcomm. Qualcomm made a statement that in USA, cell phones are allowed, they work in class 3, which means 0.25 watt power. Whereas in India, we have a class 1 which allows 1 watt of transmitted power. So our cell phones are transmitting more power, our cell towers are transmitting more power, and on top of that, we have 2G, 3G, 4G, we have Wi-Fi
your
enabled
issue
city.
is with the cluster, and we're looking at one of those, we're looking at that footage on the screen, the cluster, you said you should not cluster them. They should actually be separated, because when you cluster them, then you're amplifying, and see
There's
clusters.
a cumulative effect. The whole effect is getting cumulated, and then people are exposed to all of these radiation, and human body is absorbing all the radiation. It is affecting all the birds, bees, animals, trees, plants, fruit yield. Every living thing is getting affected.
Okay, so here's my question to you again, and I'm just taking this very quickly now, Professor Kumar. Birds, bees.
Can I ask?
Yes, I'll come to you. Birds and bees keep brought up, but this surface area of a bird and a bee is really tiny compared to a human being.
Correct.
So the argument that what affects the birds and the bees will also affect us, where do you stand on that?
Basically, simply I'll tell you again, the birds have a smaller volume. and they absorb lesser radiation, but their weight is also
flying
less.
around it quite a lot,
so
yes.
their weight is also less. So what happens that the blood fluid which is there, see, that is getting heated up, or getting, the quantity is small, so they get affected faster also.
Right.
And that is why, and not only that, it also affects their navigational abilities also. So if you see in almost all the urban cities,
that if the birds are being impacted, that it will also similarly impact human beings?
Definitely.
I have a question for Dr. Sanjeev Mehta. Dr. Mehta, we all know that doctors use radiation therapy to treat cancer, because radiation is used to kill cancer cells. Can we assume that long-term exposure to radiation will have similar effect on normal cells, Dr. Mehta?
Yeah, Faye, absolutely right. Any radiation is harmful. Listen, I don't want me, my children or my grandchildren to be exposed to this. The difference I was trying to make earlier was, there's a difference between ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. What we use and what are seen are ionizing radiations like X-rays, gamma rays. They are harmful. They clearly hit the DNA. Non-ionizing radiation, such as what we are talking about, cell phone towers, have so far not shown to cause a problem as far as I know. But before I get off this, I want a study done. I think everybody's talked about the harmful effects, but so far there is no study. It's very easy.
Sir,
go out and survey your cell
guideline of talking
Everybody's
about
up
it
in the air. You please tell me what
carcinogenic.
There are guidelines. There are guidelines.
I think that's the point that Dr. Mehta is saying. When you say, Anuj, one second, when Anuj Jain says possibly carcinogenic, possibly is still inconclusive. Why isn't there a conclusive study?
National Toxicology Study Program of United States.
Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. Study. Do the study.
Hello.
And I want to point out to Suruchi Mehta. Suruchi Mittal also said we need a study that's India specific. Prakash Munshi, do we have a study that's India specific that conclusively tells us that telephone towers are unsafe?
Yes.
Tell me the Indian radiation.
Please contact Indian Council of Medical Research. They are doing a study. There are 3 studies which were quoted to the World Health Organization in May 2015. If you want those details, I will give you. In the meanwhile, the National Toxicology Program of United States, which has spent $25 million, has proved that there are brain tumors and there is DNA damage. Now, that report you must refer to, please. The other point is the radiation is equal to power.
Please show it.
I can show you just now, my dear sir. You send me your email and I'll give it to you.
Can I come in?
Yes, okay. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, please go ahead. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, please go ahead.
No.
I want to make
totally
2-3 points very briefly. One thing is, in statistics, you can link anything to anything. Statistics is very simple. If you do everything under the assumptions on a limited environment, anything can be linked to any results. That's one thing.
But then that rubbish is every research paper ever done.
There are counter claims. It is always, no, let me finish. In economics, there are counter claims, and ultimately it is the trade-off between what is good and what is bad. There are definitely bad effects, there are definitely positive effects. You have to have a trade-off for them. The third important thing is, when we were discussing the microwave, it was a mathematical simplification was being done, that a 500 watt radiation, if it is reduced to 1 watt, then 500 hours will be required. So if the same logic is here, when it is said that 20 watt radiation from one tower, we should have 20 towers with 1 watt radiation, then in the same cluster that will be same 20 watt. So I think
the problem is that there's no one regulating 20 watts or 400 watts.
I think that's wrong. The DOT regulates, the Department of Telecom regulates. We know that there are very strict regulations in India.
Let me finish.
See, if we reduce the power from 20 watt to 1 watt, it does not mean you have to increase it by 20 times number tower, okay? Because right now 1 tower, actually when it is covering a large distance, it is going through 1 building, second building, third building, 1 tree, 2 tree, 3 tree. In fact, we have done the calculation that if you reduce the transmitted power to 1 watt, you only have to double the number of transmitters, okay? So it is not going to be 20 times, and overall power reduction will be reduced, overall radiation pollution will be reduced.
No,
in fact, we have been proposing for last several years that now radiation pollution should be considered as fourth pollution.
You were doing a simple calculation like with a microwave.
In fact, I want to just mention, we have actually started bringing a newsletter. And in this newsletter, we have actually proposed so many cases, cancer cluster cases all over the country. These are cancer cluster cases. People are developing migraine. If you look into the effects are there on the eyes, the hearing effect is there. Then the people are getting infertile. In fact, if you look into this now, so today infertility rate is growing up.
So
IVF has become a big business today.
the question actually comes back to the same thing, Professor Kumar. Is the evidence conclusive?
Yes, actually speaking, evidence is conclusive. Already 200 scientists of the world, they have actually submitted a petition to the President United Nations. And also they are after WHO, they have been asking the WHO to revise the norm. In fact, earlier WHO said they will revise the norm in 2014, then they said 15, then they said 16, and now they have postponed it to 2018.
Yes,
so they are simply postponing the problem. But they have not said that there is a no problem. And in fact, now the scientists are even saying
there are evidences,
that there are so many problems.
Government will change it.
All right. So that I really appreciate Gopal Krishna Agarwal saying that if there is evidence submitted to the government will take cognizance. That is exactly what we need at this point. We need the evidence, and we need a proactive government that is going to take...
regulating the radiation is an important issue.
Is an important issue. In fact,
so
one second, Dr. Sharma disagrees with you. Dr. Sharma has his hand up. One second, Mr. Agarwal. Dr. Sharma has his hand up. Dr. Sharma, do you disagree with the fact that long-term exposure will injure all of us?
No, it is the professor is saying, and he's saying WHO. No, there is a very clear-cut 10,000 patients, 5,000 each arm were studied with effect of radiation therapy directly given, and it has been proved that there is no statistical significance, any damage done. I agree with what
seen those 4,000 papers. Please read those 4,000 papers, okay?
But today there is no evidence.
Will you share the 4,000 papers with Dr. Sanjay Sharma?
Definitely. You can. I'll give you the website also. Please see bioinitiative.org, and you can see all these papers. You can see their summary. It is a 1,000 plus pages report. Please go and see yourself. It is divided into 20 different chapters. Each chapter has a title. It says there, these are the effects. So please read, sir. Please read those bioinitiative report.
Okay,
4,000 papers.
Let him make his point.
Sir, please, I have read, sir. I know subject. This is my subject. I know enough. Please, 1 minute. I am telling you, the today IARC guidelines, it is put you in a bracket 2B. That means it is just occasional random disease occurring. You cannot attribute it to towers. It cannot attribute to the non-ionizing radiation, as my friend Dr. Sanjeev Mehta
said. Sir, I'll tell you, first of all, class 2B does not mean occasional random, okay? That is a class 3. You are mixing up with class 2B and class 3.
What is class 2B?
Class 2B is possible carcinogen, which means limited evidence, and these things are accumulated. So those evidences in 2011, and these are accumulated over the years. So as the years go by...
I have a question for Aishwarya Bhati. Aishwarya Bhati, I want to go back to what you said earlier, that cell phone towers and radiation is our generation's cigarette smoke. That this is that if it is actually if it is harmful to us, there are very, very powerful people keeping us from that information. Why do you believe that?
See, that's why I made that connect between tobacco industry and this, because commercial interests are so powerful in corporate houses that it is very, very difficult to break that nexus. Because
go ahead, Aishwarya.
Because environment, because radiation, because all this protection is something that affects, we are so short-sighted that we don't see the effects to ourselves. These are long-term effects, and these actually affect the future generations. So what happens is we don't really see. Why did the Supreme Court have to come out with these 3 principles? You know, what we are talking here on the debate is there is no conclusive proof that it suggests so, despite one expert vehemently claiming that there is. But the point is, like you turned it around, is there a conclusive proof that there is no connection between the mobile tower radiations, cell phone radiations and cancer? Till the time you cannot say that there is no conclusive proof between cancer and the mobile radiations, there must be proper study which is related to India, which takes into account the ground realities. Just having a penalty of 10 crore rupees on people who are having higher radiation, that will not give life back to maybe hundreds of people who are suffering from cancer. Of course, we are living in these times that our lifestyles are fueling all the myriad number of cancers that we are seeing. That everybody around, a lot of people around are suffering from the very horrible diseases which are directly attributable to our lifestyle. But till the time we can conclusively say that it is not relatable, we must look into it. The reason why I made this connection with the tobacco and cancer was, in the beginning of the previous century, when there was attack, before, the Marlboro Man was the cool man, and Wild West movies were actually like cigarette advertisements. So the whole impetus to the tobacco industry was coming out of that, and it met with a lot of resistance before it could be conclusively established that the tobacco actually causes cancer. The same thing, I see the same pattern. Right. That's Anuj, how I see it.
Until the time that there is no conclusive evidence, why not think about prevention is better than cure? Absolutely. Why should we wait for the next 50 years so that I get cancer and then I'm sitting in a hospital to get myself treated?
You're very right. So Anuj, what you're saying is that unless a bunch of us get cancer, we won't have conclusive evidence.
Absolutely.
Conclusive evidence will only come when a whole bunch of us get sick. And really, are we going to wait till that time? Deepak is on the phone line from Delhi. Deepak, go ahead.
Hello, Faye.
Can I come?
Good evening.
Yes.
I just wanted a simple thing for the panel who are pro the cell towers is, do they have cell towers on top of their buildings, and would they allow them to be erected there? One. And all these companies like Jio and Vodafone, why don't they put cell towers on top of their office buildings and on top of the buildings of all the managing directors? Then we will know. Then they can do the cancer research on those people, and we'll know exactly what the result is. Because the cigarette
not only on top of
in front of them.
The cigarette
industry was financing all the research that was anti.
And I want to ask, all these persons have stopped using the cell phones.
Exactly
those who are opposing.
Sir, we are not opposing technology, sir. Sir, we are pro. I'm a telecom engineer. I would want the technology to grow.
See,
we are not saying that throw away a mobile phone.
This is an excellent question. So Gopal Krishna Agarwal is asking, and I will take Deepak's question forward as well. Gopal Krishna Agarwal is asking, Anush, I want you to answer this question. Should we give up cellular technology? Most of us wouldn't even find our way home without our cell phones. Why do you believe that?
I think it's part of our lifestyle. We should be adopting technology. It has made life simpler for us. But obviously, we should have certain ways of using this technology. We cannot be having, a mobile tower antenna facing our bedroom or our sleeping area, where we are not even sure when our body is supposed to rest. We are still being thrown energy, which in the subconscious mind, when we are sleeping, it's affecting our body, our health.
Right.
So
so very quickly, one second. I have a very specific question, Anuj.
Can I briefly
is it harmful to me if the tower is on top of my building, if it's on top of the neighbor's building?
It's actually more dangerous if you are facing an antenna.
And if it's on the 10th floor and I happen to live on the first floor, does that still affect me?
It may not be affecting you as much as if you are facing an antenna directly in front of you. Is there a
radius that we should be worried about, especially if it's a cluster we're talking?
So there is a fading effect. So the radiation will just keep bouncing off the walls of different buildings till the time it reaches the ground floor. Basically, any antenna that is put up on a terrace is to service the roads. Because people are walking or people are in the cars and they are talking on the mobile phones. So the network will reach the roads. But the levels at which it is facing a house directly in front of the antenna and at the road will be definitely different.
You know, it's very interesting. I must point out that in our big cities, we pay more to live higher and higher on floor rise. We should actually prefer to live on the lower floors because the radiation comes down from the roof and it actually weakens as it goes lower and lower.
You'd be surprised, yes.
Dr. Praveen has called us on the phone line just now. He's a cancer specialist from Hyderabad. Dr. Praveen, go ahead.
Yeah. This is. I just want to make it very quick points. Basically, there is a thing called heat shock proteins. Heat shock proteins are the normal brain releases HSPs as a defensive mechanism. What is happening with this non-thermal radiation? We are talking about that quote unquote non-thermal, non-ionizing radiation and all that. Take number of hours. The scientists have shown that this heat shock proteins may be chronically present and over a number of years may increase the cancer risk. And coming back very quickly to there is a brain cancer, leukemia and lymphoma connection with this particular thing. This study was conducted in Royal Adelaide Hospital in 1997. Repa Kohli and colleagues has done this study. They have shown 200 cases of lymphoma in an 18-month study. And there was Swedish cancer specialist Leonard Hardell who has shown increased risk of occurrence of tumor on the same side of the temporal side of the brain as such, what we call normally when we are studying. This is a 20-year study by Poland, which established the strongest link between mobile cancers and And the last, Vinnie Khurana, she's a neurosurgeon from UK, and they have reviewed more than 100
So Dr. Praveen, you believe there is conclusive evidence?
There is a conclusive evidence. We can't wait. As a doctor, we'd like to look at the precautionary principle, what your other panelists have said. Hats off to that lady. And we need to wake up because we can't go the way we go with the tobacco industry. The thing is...
And I want to give the final word on this show to Suruchi Mittal, who took the case up in the Supreme Court and fought single-handedly, and she has said that she will continue to fight until she gets some sort of justice. Suruchi Mittal, tell us what you need. How can we support you until we get to the bottom of this way or that, yes or no? We need to know the truth. Suruchi, go ahead.
Yes, we will continue to fight, and all this will be done in the leadership of Ms. Nivedita Sharma, who is heading the matter and unfortunately could not be here with you. But I fully agree with Ms. Bhati also, and as continuously said by Ms. Sharma also in the court, everybody keeps on saying there is no conclusive evidence whether it causes cancer or not, but there is no conclusive evidence whether it does not causes cancer. So we have to go on precautionary principle, and in our petition there is Harish Chandra Tiwari, who has been continuously exposed for 14 years. 14 years for electromagnetic radiation and has caused cancer. There is another resident of the house who has already expired last year because of cancer. So there are many studies who are supporting it, so we need to go for sustainable development.
So this is what we'll do. Unfortunately, this is a 1-hour show, so I've run out of time. But what I'm going to do is this. My team will facilitate a conversation. Mr. Agarwal, 1 second. My team will facilitate a conversation between all of the members of this panel. Those who say yes and those who say no, so they can exchange research and they can start talking about it. Because I think that's the most important thing. We have to have this conversation. We have to talk about it. We will then put together more research and we will invite more experts to have this conversation. We will also, in any way that we can, help the team that is that's currently advocating in Supreme Court, so that we get as much research out as possible. I understand this is what the court has also asked for. Put in as much research as you want us to consider, because the truth is, we cannot afford to take any chances. We must err on the side of caution. And from what the experts are telling us, if the option is migraines to cancer, I would then go out and look out of my window today and check and see if there is a cluster of towers directly facing my bedroom or my children's bedroom. And if there is, that may be cause for worry. It may not also. But do you want to err on the side of caution? So what we're going to do is, I will first then say, do not panic. We're getting to the bottom of it. We will exchange all the research and we will try and also make it available to you. The Supreme Court is also looking into it. Gopal Krishna Agarwal very kindly said that the government will look at anything that we send to them as well. So we're very glad to have this very wonderful panel of experts join us, but we're going to stay on this topic until you find out the truth. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much.